Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead, countdown to the start of Season 7. And what this video is going to be doing is giving my general predictions for Dwight in Season 7. Kind of seeing where I think his character is going to go, giving a little bit of an analysis on his character overall, and to see if he really is a bad guy or a villain on the show. If you are not caught up with the Walking Dead TV show or the comics and you don't want to be spoiled in any way, I want to warn you now. This video will contain a lot of spoilers from the comic books that could feature throughout Season 7, major spoilers. So if you don't want to know anything about the plot line, then I suggest you exit the video now, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So, when we are introduced to Dwight in both the TV show and in the comics, we come to find out that he is a member of the Saviors. He lives with Negan, he supports Negan, and granted, in the comic books and in the TV show, he's introduced in different ways. In fact, in the TV show, we see him before he's even with the Saviors. He's on his own. He was with the Saviors, but he ran away in the TV show. And then later we see him among the Saviors, whereas in the comics, he's introduced in a very dramatic way when he kills Abraham. In the comic books, Abraham is the one that is killed by Dwight, whereas in the TV show, it's Denise. And we've seen Dwight commit atrocious acts on the show. You know, I mean, he's killed Denise. He shot Daryl, which is a big no-no. You don't do that. And it's very, very easy for the audience, I think, to hate him, to label him as a villain. And I don't personally care for him. I mean, don't get me wrong, the actor does a very, very good job. I believe his name is Austin Amelio, and he does a wonderful job, so I'll give him props. But the character himself is not the most favorable person on the show. But is he really the villain that we think him to be? Well, there may be evidence to the contrary, that he may not necessarily be the villain on the show, that really he's just a different kind of survivor, and we might see him play a very big impact on the show in Season 7. A lot of this comes from the comic books, but also my analysis of the character through both the comics and the TV show. And what I think of when I think of Dwight, I label him as an opportunist. That really, he's that kind of survivor in the zombie apocalypse or in any situation where he wants to situate himself in the best possible situation that he can be in. So think of his character. Sometime before all the, Rick's group meets the Saviors and whatnot, Dwight lives amongst the Saviors. He knows the girl, Honey. They call her Honey in the TV show, but in the comic books, the female companion of Dwight is named Sherry. And of course, you also have Tina in the TV show. And what you see is what I'm assuming to be Dwight was working with the Saviors, living there. And Sherry and Tina were probably among Negan's wives. Negan basically has women that are his wives, multiple wives. He's a polygamist. And it's voluntary. The women can volunteer themselves to be Negan's wives, have physical relations with him, and they don't have to go out and, be scavengers or put themselves at risk with the walkers. So at some point along the way, I think that really what Dwight said to Daryl and all of his actions, I think were sincere. I think that Dwight really was getting tired of living amongst the Saviors, the things that they were doing, the things that Negan was doing to him, to other people, to Tina, to Honey, and the three left. They encounter Daryl. They think that Daryl is a member of the Saviors. It turns out he's not. And then once they get away and after Tina dies, See, I think that what Dwight wanted at the time was Dwight wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. He wanted to get away from the Saviors in general. And if you watch the episode, watch carefully. The moment that Dwight pulls the gun on Daryl is when Daryl starts to say, yeah, I have other friends, Sasha and Abraham, and I have to go look for them. It is only in that moment that Dwight actually pulls the gun. Now, that could mean one of two things. It's either that Dwight was always intending on taking the motorcycle, because let's be honest, 3 people on a motorcycle does not work. That, or he was willing to work with Daryl as long as Daryl was going to, take him away from all that. But once Daryl revealed that he had a community, that he had a place to stay in the area, I think that in that moment, Dwight knew this was not going to work, because the only way that they're going to officially be safe from the Saviors is if they get away from the area, to get away from the territory of the Saviors, if you will. If they would have gone back with Daryl and lived in Alexandria, Dwight would have always known that eventually Negan would have found them, because Negan's found all these other communities, so why wouldn't he find Alexandria? Which, of course, is true. Eventually the Saviors and Rick's group do eventually meet up. They've been made known to each other. And once Daryl's actions were contrary to what Dwight wanted, Dwight took the action that he did. So I think that was really what his motivation was. It's just he wanted to do what he wanted to do. He's selfish in that way, and that's why he did what he did. Of course, sometime later, the Saviors do end up finding him and Honey out on the road. They were on the motorcycle. The motorcycle was recovered. Of course, Dwight is back with them. And I think that what you see with Dwight now is that Dwight doesn't want to die. I mean, Dwight is not a person who wants to be killed. So what probably happened was he probably gets taken back before Negan. He has to beg for forgiveness, beg for mercy. Negan says, yeah, hey, I need you. I don't like killing people, but, I got to punish you. And, of course, he brands Dwight with the iron, which is something that he does in the comic books. And the reason why he does that is to label people as a person who cheats with one of his wives. But he could possibly do it for other reasons as well. So I think it might have been a dual kind of purpose, to punish Dwight for taking Honey, and probably for running away as well. So Dwight now realizes he has to prove himself. So I think that was ultimately the reason why Denise ended up dying, because if you remember, he wanted to kill Daryl. He literally said in the scene, I wasn't aiming for her, indicating he meant to hit Daryl. And I think that what that was Dwight's in a position where he realizes, I gotta be one of these people. I gotta show them I'm willing to play ball, because if I don't, I'm gonna get killed. And I think that when he was trying to kill Daryl, he was trying to do one of two things. Well, I mean, 2 things. He was trying to show the Saviors that he's on board. He's going to do what they want him to do. And he showed that by killing one of the individuals, which turned out to be Denise. But I think the reason why he was particularly aiming for Daryl was because back at the scene, back where the motorcycle, was taken from Daryl, Daryl said that, Dwight was going to be sorry for what he did. And I think that Dwight knows this is a guy that wants to kill me. This is a guy who would not hesitate to kill me. So I need to take him out first before he tries to kill me. And I think that's exactly why he wanted to kill Daryl. And you see that with Dwight's character in the comic books, because he does kill Abraham. Even though he doesn't necessarily like living with the Saviors, being one of them, being one of Negan's people, he resents the fact that Negan forced his way on Sherry and branded him. He holds ill feelings for that. But he has no other choice at this point. Again, he's an opportunist. He has to find the right way to survive, and being with the Saviors is the best way for him. But I think that Dwight is low, like on the totem pole, if you will, in that I think that when you're branded, you're in a sense seen as the lowest of the low. And I think that's what's going on with his character right now. I think that he's really in a position where he doesn't have power. Unlike in the comic books where he does seem to be like Negan's right-hand man, I don't think that's the case in the TV show. I think it's more of he's now on the low end of the totem pole because he doesn't, because he has the brand and because he betrayed the group. So he has to work his way to trust everybody again. So whenever he was in the season finale, if you noticed, the one savior told Dwight, chop, chop, Dwight, go get Daryl, Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne out of the van. So I think that he's really low in the rankings of the saviors. Now, when it comes to season 7, what will his character be doing? I think that personally, a lot of the storylines in the comic books that deal with Dwight are going to come true in the TV show. Whether they're going to have the same impact or result, though, I'm not sure. Because in the comic books, and this is where a lot of the spoilers come in, Glenn, of course, is the one that is killed by Negan. And afterwards, Rick gives in. He basically tells Negan, all right, you win. You can, take supplies from us. We'll be part of this network to save the rest of his people. But, of course, Rick always knew that there was going to be a time when they would get revenge and attack the saviors. He was always intending that to happen. Well, during all this time when this is happening, Jesus from the hilltop eventually introduces Rick to Ezekiel and the kingdom. So eventually, the leaders of these three communities meet together, Jesus, Ezekiel, and Rick, and while they're there at the kingdom, all of a sudden waltzes in Dwight. We're like, what the heck is this guy doing here? This is the guy that killed Abraham. This is the guy that held Eugene hostage in front of the gate. Well, Dwight shows up. He says, look, I'm here to help. I'm your inside man. I don't like Negan any more than you do, but I've had no choice but to follow him. And that's something that's really hard to accept, especially for Rick, because of the fact that, Dwight did kill Abraham. I mean, again, Dwight has done terrible things in the comic books as well as the TV show. I mean, Dwight killed Denise. He meant to kill somebody. He did shoot Daryl. That was something that Dwight intended to do. But I do understand to a certain extent Dwight's motivations. Again, Dwight is that kind of person who he is willing to do whatever it takes to help him survive. And whoever that person is that can help him do that, that is who he's going to follow. And the way I always like to put it, if you ever watch that show Survivor on CBS, I'm a big fan of that show. Depending on the season that you watch, if you're a fan, sometimes you have players who they make an alliance, they all stay together, like 5 or 6 people get together, and they ride the game right through to the end. Nobody ever does anything. And all of a sudden, the lower people in that alliance get picked off, and everybody's like, oh, well, shoot, why didn't we, do something earlier in the game? Our bad, and then you give the win to somebody else. But there's other seasons where there's this player who, in a sense, is the leader. And this would be Negan. Negan would have an alliance, if you will, of people. And you have this one player, or sometimes multiple players, who they know that there's no way they can win this game unless they take Negan out. They vote him out. Same thing here. Eventually, people know that they want to get Negan out of power. They want to topple him. But they can't do it unless all of the cards fall into place. So on Survivor, you get the right amount of people together with the right amount of, ideas, and then you turn on the person, and sometimes it works out. Well, that's Dwight. Dwight's that guy who's been waiting. And he now has the opportunity. He has Rick's group that has proven to be more powerful of a force against the Saviors than anyone before, I'm assuming. And then you have the Hilltop, and then you have the Kingdom. So now you have these networks. And I think that eventually somehow, some way, Dwight is going to play a part against Negan. I think that is the case. I think that really what we've seen, if you read between the lines of the character, you do see a man who does hate Negan, who doesn't want to be a part of this group, but he has no choice because he wants to survive, and this is how he can do it at this time. So the opportunity is here. Now, when will he strike? I'm not sure. I think that it could happen in the first half of the season, the second half. It just depends on the pacing of the plot. But I really think that Dwight is going to follow his comic book character to a certain extent. I think that we will see Dwight being a person who is influential in overthrowing Negan in season 7. We have seen that the actor Austin Amelio has gotten a actual starring role on the show, so it seems like he's going to be around for a while. And I think that significance of that character will be more prevalent as time goes on. I think we'll finally be able to see what Negan did to him. We might get a flashback for all we know. We might be able to see his interactions with Negan to see how he really feels. Maybe he gets to interact with Rick, maybe with Daryl, some other character to let them know, hey, I'm on your side. I know I'm not the most favorable person. I know you probably hate me for what I did, but dude, I was just surviving. It's what I had to do. And to that extent, I understand, but it doesn't mean I like the guy any better. I mean, he still did terrible things. And you see in different movies and different TV shows, I mean, the bad guys becoming, somewhat of redeemed heroes, if you will. I mean, maybe that might happen with Dwight. I mean, maybe he might be able to be redeemed in the eyes of the audience, but then again, it's going to take a lot of work. And it may just result in his death. Because one of the things that I was thinking about was, in the comic books, after everything is said and done, Dwight actually becomes the new leader of the Saviors. Part of me wonders if that's not going to happen in the TV show now that we have Daryl, and that maybe in some way it's going to be Daryl that takes over instead of Dwight. That might happen. So Dwight might end up dying in his cause to overthrow Negan instead of living and being the new leader. Hard to say. But I do think we're going to see a lot more of the character. I don't think that he's necessarily the villain, but it doesn't mean I like his character. I still think he's someone that may not necessarily be as favorable of a survivor. It's kind of hard to relate since we have this bias for Rick's group. We're very much pro-Rick's group. So anybody who's against that or did anything against them is always going to be a villain in our eyes. So we'll see what the show can do. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And I can't wait for season 7. So let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about Dwight? Do you think the comic book character's storyline is going to carry over, or will they do something else? Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.